grievous wolf, the Reverend Al Sharpton. We all have seen what has been going on the past several days, a little over a week, the responses to many of the executive orders that President Donald J. Trump, number 45 and 47, he's our president. When Joe Biden was our president, he was our president. When Barack Obama was our president, he was our president. And now President Trump is our president. But we have seen the fake outrage that many race baiters and race hustlers are now pushing upon those who are low information voters. And see, when you are a low information voter, you're also a low information thinker. And low information voters and low information thinkers produce low information outcomes. And so here we are today with all of these lies being told about the revocation of LBJ's executive order, the 1965 Discrimination Act. Now let's keep in mind that LBJ was a racist. I don't know if they still teach this in school, but when you think of LBJ, think about the overall deconstruction and imploding of the black family. Think about this, that from the 1890s all the way up to the 1950s, the black marriage rate rivaled that of whites. But after LBJ came along with his Great Society plan, he found a creative way to remove the black man from the home and to replace him with a $300 to $400 check from the federal government. And by doing so, they made it difficult for women who are on their own or women who were married to receive support from the government. The only way that they could do this is that they had to hide the patriarch who was in the house. And this same LBJ said that I will have niggers voting for, and I quote, that I will have.
What's up, family? So we're going to break this down today and look at the different perspectives, and then I'll give you my thoughts. Now, and I've been seeing this clip going around, and I'm not going to front. It's one of those clips that make you stop and actually pay attention. Because you got this black pastor, we just watched the clip, a real one, who stood up and went after Al Sharpton and the whole race industry. And the things he said, man, they're not easy to hear, but they need to be said. Because here's the thing. We've been watching this cycle play out for years now. Something happens, a tragedy, a confrontation, something that could be a real story. And before anybody even knows what actually happened, before the investigation is done, before the facts come out, you got Al Sharpton on TV. You got Ben Crumb on the scene, and you got the narrative already written. And the narrative is always the same: race. But here's what this actually looked like in real life. Let me break it down. So this pastor right here, and then I have another pastor named Pastor Manning. And I want you to hear what he actually said, right? Because he comes out and he calls it exactly what it is. He says the race hustlers are pushing fake outrage on people who don't know any better. That's what you just heard. He calls them low information voters, low information thinkers. And he says low information voters and low information thinkers produce low information outcomes. Now, I know that might sound harsh to some people, but let's be real for a second. How many times have you seen somebody share a story online, get completely outraged, go viral, scream about racism, call for protests, and then 2 weeks later, it turns out the story was completely wrong? Or the video was taken out of context, or the facts were totally different from what everybody assumed. And by the time the truth comes out, nobody cares. The damage is done. The money has been raised. The narratives have been set, and the people who push the lie have moved on to the next story, and that's the game, that's the grift, and it's been going on for a long time. Now, Pastor Manning, I'm getting to this next clip. He goes at Al Sharpton directly, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said because it's worth hearing. He talks about how Al Sharpton and these race hustlers, they prey on people who don't do their own research, people who react emotionally instead of factually, people who see something on the news and immediately assume the worst about, in this case, quote unquote, white people, about the system, about the police, and whatever the story is. And he says something that really stuck, right? He says, these people are leading the lost, and they're just as lost as the people that are claiming to help. And they don't have the answers. They don't have solutions. All they have is outrage. All they have is accusations. All they have is the ability to keep people angry and scared so they can keep collecting checks. Think about it like this. You got Al Sharpton. This man has been in the public eye for decades. He's been involved in some of the most high profile racial controversies in American history. And what has he actually done? What has he built? What has he solved? He's got a TV show, he's got a national platform, but when you look at the communities he claims to represent, are they better off? Are the schools better? Are the jobs more plentiful? Is the crime rate down? Is the family structure stronger? I'm not telling you what to think, but ask yourself the question. And then you got Ben Crumb. The man shows up anytime there is a race-related incident anywhere in the country. He files the lawsuits, he does the press conferences, he raises the money. And the pastor in the clip, he says something that I think is important, right? He says, we get paid even if we don't win the case. That right there, right? That's the whole game. Because if you get paid whenever you win or lose, what's your incentive to actually win, right? What's your incentive to actually find justice? Your incentive is to keep the circus going. Your incentive is to keep the outrage rolling. Your incentive is to make sure the next case comes along so you can collect another check.
That remotely reveres Al Sharpton, there's something wrong with you, dreadfully. There's something wrong with you. That is one of the most vile human beings that have ever set his ass in a chair. That is one of the most vile human beings that ever doo-dooed between two hills. Al Sharpton, it shows you how sick black people are. Now, they don't know it. They have no idea. Hell, men walk around with their pants down showing their buttholes. They don't work. They don't want to go to work. They don't see work as an ethic. They don't believe in providing. They have no concept of bringing home the paycheck and providing for their families or building in the neighborhoods. That black man, all he wants you to do is give him. That's all he wants. He doesn't understand white folks' work ethic. He gets angry with them. He gets angry with the man. The man tells him to pick up that box, take it over there. He gets angry. He doesn't understand the work ethic. He's a sick person, that black man. He's sick. He don't want to work.
And I'm telling you, just watch close and you'll see it. It's all implications. That's all they do. There are never any facts. This is the exact same thing Candace Owens did. This is the exact same thing they did with Carmelo Anthony. And the moment the hearing with Tyler Robinson, everything Candace Owens said went the fuck out the window. It's exactly what they're doing. It's selectively releasing information just enough to keep all the black people's imagination on what possibly could have happened to him, just because these are people who were raised to think that white people mean you harm outside. These are the sheep. Our community have sheep too. These people are they've been passing down the same hate and fear throughout their family. They don't have any of their own experiences. They've never been around white people. They don't kick it with white people. They don't know that we're all just people, bro. They don't know that shit. I be trying to tell people that there's some people who really lost, and these are the niggas that lose you.
So you guys get the memo, right? You seen Pastor Manning just speak in regards of saying, questioning the thought process of respecting or revering, quote unquote, as he would say, Al Sharpton. And then you see this, right? They both come to the same conclusion of collecting another check, even if they don't win the case, right? Because their incentive is to keep the outrage rolling. And then this is where the bigger conversation starts to come in, because when you bring in Al Sharpton and Ben Crumb, you're not just bringing in lawyers and activists, you're bringing in a whole machine. And that machine does not care about your community. It does not care about your family. It does not care about the relationships you built with your neighbors over the years, right? And in these clips, it makes a point that stopped me cold, right? Because if you really believe that everybody around you is racist, if you really believe that the community you live in is full of the people who hate you, why do you stay there? Why do you want to live around people you hate? Why do you want to tear apart the relationships you spent years building, right? Think about it. If you truly believe your neighbors are dangerous, your coworkers are out to get you, the system is designed to destroy you, why would you stay? This is America. You can leave. You can go anywhere. There are 50 states, thousands of cities, millions of neighborhoods. But the race hustlers don't want you to leave. They need you to stay, and they need you to stay angry. They need you to stay scared. They need you to stay convinced that the people around you are the enemy. Because if you ever figured out that we're all just people trying to get by and figure it out, as I always like to say, you wouldn't need them anymore. And that's the grift. That's the whole thing, family.
If your first reaction is to reach out to Ben Crump, or to, I'm guessing Ben Crump reached out to them, is to take that call and say yes because you believe the internet hype, what you're telling me immediately is that you don't like white people, that you don't trust the process, you've been given no reason not to trust the process, you're buying into the culture, snipping in your ears. Maybe it's the black church you attend or whatever. Maybe it's the pressure from the culture, the community to burn every bridge that you spent your life building. If you dislike your friends and neighbors so much that you're willing to tear that community apart by bringing in a Ben Crump and an Al Sharpton to accuse everybody of racism and comparing your child to a modern day Emmett Till, why do you want to live around these people? Why don't you go live around people who are more like-minded than you? If you hate us, why do you want to be around us? Make that make sense for me. Circle that square, because that's what you're telling me when you go and hire a Ben Crump and an Al Sharpton. I didn't even know Al Sharpton still did this, but apparently so.
If you really want to see the racism white people say doesn't exist, look at the wealth gap. That's all you need to know. I guarantee you not a single black person owned any of these boats, right? So if you want, let's say you want to be able to afford something like this, where would you do that? All these environments that you would need to go to earn something like this, it's all controlled by white people. You know what I'm saying? Especially jobs that are paying over $100,000, $200,000 a year. It's all controlled by white people. If you don't move a certain way that white people want you to move, you'll never get that money. So you'll never be able to afford something like this. This is why if you somehow figure out a way to finagle and outwit the system and you manage to get money to buy something like this and white people see you in these areas, they're gonna start questioning, what are you doing here? That's why they be asking you, what are you doing in my neighborhood? Because they know you're not supposed to have the money. They're not supposed to give it to you.
In 1921, a black man named Anthony Johnson arrived in the English colony in Virginia. Like many Africans of that era, he came under forced circumstances. He was an indentured servant. And after years of labor, he gained his freedom. He didn't stay poor. He worked hard. He acquired land, actually hundreds of acres, 640 of them to begin with. He became one of the wealthiest black landowners in colonial Virginia. He owned livestock, he built a successful tobacco plantation, and he accumulated servants and laborers. One of those men was by the name of John Cansor. Cantor eventually claimed that his term of service had expired. A white neighbor by the name of Robert Parker believed Cantor had served long enough and encouraged him to leave Johnson's plantation, which he did. He did so quickly. But Johnson wasn't having any of that. He sued the white farmer, Parker, and the case made its way all the way up to the Virginia courtroom in 1655. And in the first time in American history, the judges ruled in Anthony Johnson's favor. John Cantor was ordered returned back to Johnson for the remainder of his natural lifespan. That ruling became an early precedent recognizing lifetime servitude in colonial Virginia and marked an important step in the legal development of slavery in English America as we knew it. Now let that sink in. One of the most uncomfortable stories in American history isn't black and white. It's about human nature. And scripture warned us long ago, long before America existed, that the heart of man was deceitfully wicked. Sin doesn't care about your skin color. Greed doesn't care about your ancestry. The desire to control another human isn't owned by one race. It belongs to fallen humanity. Like the book Uncle Tom's Cabin that depicts a man that did all he could to save the slaves that were on the plantation, it took two black men, one by the name of Sambo, the other by the name of Quimbo, to find Uncle Tom, the actual hero of the story, and beat him to death. And that's curious because the Democrats today will call me the Uncle Tom. But I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to deliver people from the iron shackles that they just can't see.
White people freed black people from slavery. But that narrative is never pushed. It's always white people owned slaves. Never how Africans sold other black people into slavery and white people freed them. You see, that will be going against the narrative. And we all know they don't like when you go against the narrative. They don't like when you tell the truth. White people aren't the enemies. Love Bianca.
All right, family. So, when you go into the history, right, and this is where it really gets interesting because talking about LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and I know people have different opinions about LBJ. A lot of people credit him with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and the Great Society programs. And there's some truth to that. He did sign those bills. But in the clip, it brings up something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. He says LBJ was a racist. And he says the Great Society programs, the welfare programs, the way they were structured, they actually destroyed the black family. Now, I'm not going to just repeat that without explaining it to understand the context of where the clip came from. So let's break it down and just having a conversation. From the 1890s all the way up to the 1950s, the black marriage rate in this country rivaled the white marriage rate. Black families were intact, black fathers were in a home, black children were being raised by both parents. Then comes the Great Society. And the way the welfare system was set up, it created a problem, I believe, for all families, no matter what race today. I'm just speaking in regards to the subjected topic of it just being about black people. I'm speaking to the clip conversation, but I love speaking to all race because I love to push unity. It's not about our skin color. It's about us making sure we're operating in unity and also making sure we're on the right side of history and continue to lift each other up and doing the right thing righteously while being productive citizens in our community while also building each other up. It's not about your skin color. All right. I want to make that very clear as a disclaimer, but I'm just speaking to the conversation in regards to the clips with the different perspectives because we heard about Al Sharpton of how the race thing has took a toll on all families, no matter what race, but using a statistic when it comes to black and white families. But now today, like I say, the modern family has been destroyed because if anybody wants anything free, I mean, we can see that as an example with New York Mayor Jaron Mudami, free buses, free rent control, things like that, even though nothing comes free. But you get where I'm going with it. And I'm just saying that it affects us as a whole. And I'm always advocate because I hate the divisive rhetoric for unity and love and coming together for the greater good for the next generation, no matter what skin color you are, because we're all a people and we are the people, we the people. So speaking to the topic, right? When it comes to black fathers were in a home, black children were being raised by both parents. Then comes the Great Society and the way the welfare system was set up, creating a problem. They received benefits. The father couldn't be in a home. The government essentially replaced the father with a check. They said, we'll take care of your family, but if he's not there, think about what that did. Think about the ripple effects of that policy over the next 30, 40, 50 years. You saw the family structure collapse. The united front in which our country rooted on, which was the beauty of families and unity and coming together, right? The American dream. That's what it was part of, a united family. And you saw fatherless homes now become the norm instead of the exception. You saw crime rates go up. You saw poverty persist. You saw generations of children grow up without a father in the house. A lot of people will call it, AKA, not welfare, but the government daddy. And a multitude of race. And basically, nothing wrong with being independent, but the simple fact is, now a lot of people would say, as I talk to people, that the woman feels she can do bad all by herself without the man because of the incentive to remove the father from the home to create more fatherless homes, because they can do big and bad all by themselves, right? And, big, strong, independent woman. And the people who push these policies, they knew what they were doing. LBJ himself quoted, right? He said he'll have individuals voting Democrat for the next 200 years. I'm not making that up. It's documented. But I'm not saying this to make you angry. I'm saying this because you need to understand the history and you need to understand how we got here. Because if you don't understand the problem, you can't fix it, right? And when you go deeper into it, talking about a story in this situation, mentioning, as we just seen recently in a clip before this one that's on the screen, about Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson happened to be a black man. He came to Virginia in the early 1600s, around 1621. He was brought here as an indentured servant. But he worked, he earned his freedom. He became one of the wealthiest landowners in colonial Virginia, as you heard it. And he owned hundreds of acres. He owned livestock. He had servants. And in 1655, Anthony Johnson went to court. He sued a white man that name go by Robert Parker. And the case was about a man named John Kaiser, Kaiser, who had been Johnson's servant and had run away, claiming he was free. Johnson sued for his return, and the court ruled in Johnson's favor. John Kaiser was ordered returned to Anthony Johnson for the rest of his natural life. That court case, that 1655 ruling, became one of the first legal precedents recognizing lifetime servitude servitude in colonial Virginia. So when you look at it, right, a black man's court case helped codify slavery in English America. Now, why doesn't anybody talk about that? Why don't they teach this in school? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. The narrative is that slavery was a white crime against black people. And I'm not saying that slavery didn't exist and horrible things didn't happen to black people, because it was, right? Slavery was a white crime against black people. It was, in the sense of, a horrible, flawed, sinful nature within our country, which thankfully we have overcame, and look how far we come. See, I like to focus on how far we came and how now we're more diverse than ever, and we have communities with so many different race and so many different children that can come together and be great individuals with a great, amazing character, which makes them who they are, and being able to uplift and actually see value in each other and the gifts that we can make this world a better place had we not been here. That's what I love to advocate for, right? But I am saying it was a sinful time in our country. But we cannot stall on that. We are freer than ever to be, right? But it was about greed and power and the fallen nature of man. And that is a point, right, that you heard in the clip. He says, sin doesn't care about your skin color. Greed doesn't care about your ancestry. The desire to control another human being isn't owned by one race. It belongs to fallen humanity. And he's right. He also brings up the 1830 census. And the numbers are right there. In 1830, there were over 319,000 free black people in America. They were a little over 2 million enslaved black people. And of those free black people, almost 4,000 of them owned slaves. Some of the largest plantation owners in South Carolina were black men. Now, I'm not saying this to excuse slavery and what had happened and things like that, with the whole black and white thing. I'm not saying this to minimize the horrors of slavery at all. I'm saying this because the truth is more complicated than what we're being told. And the people who are here telling you that white people are evil and that white people are oppressors and that racism is the only explanation for everything, well, they're not telling you the whole story. They're leaving out parts that don't fit. And the reality is, slavery is just bad in itself, no matter what the race is, to control another human being. That's why we had our freedoms and liberties, thankfully. And we learned from that. And here's another part they don't talk about: the Arab slave trade, right? The trans-Saharan slave trade. For centuries, Arab traders were capturing and selling African people. They enslaved far more Africans than were ever brought to America. And that trade went on well into the 1900s. In some parts of Africa, slavery still exists today. But you won't hear Al Sharpton talk about that. You won't see Ben Crumb filing lawsuits about that because that doesn't fit the narrative. The narrative needs a villain, and the villain has to be white, unfortunately, which I disapprove of it so much. It just tears apart our communities, man. It really does. And it's doing nothing but continuing for us to drive in a car forward where we can do great things as a country, no matter what your skin color is, but keep looking in the rearview mirror at race when we have overcame a sinful time in our country's history. But it seems as though, well, Sharpton and Ben Crumb, if the villain is white, then you can keep being angry. You can keep people angry. You can keep people scared. You can keep people voting for the people who promise to protect them from the quote unquote white boogeyman, as they try to make it. But if the truth comes out and people realize that human evil is not a skin color thing, it's a heart thing, then the whole grift falls apart. Now, let me tell you what the takeaway is, because I'm not just here to react to a clip. I'm here to teach something. The real solution is not more outrage. It's not more race baiting. It's not more lawsuits. It's not more government programs. The real solution is self-reliance, hard work, family, faith, and community, right? And when you really look at that, that is so powerful, right? Because the average millionaire in America, right? You know the average millionaire is? It's a 58-year-old man who's been married to his wife for over 20 years. He had his children within that marriage. He lives in a modest home. He drives a car that's paid off. He's been working and saving and investing for decades. Now, that's a formula that works for anybody. Black, white, brown, doesn't matter. And that's beautiful, baby. That is beautiful, right? Amazing. I got to give a round of applause for that, because that's what I stand for, right? I stand for that. I'm always advocate for that. And that's just the honest truth. And that's what we should be focused on. All right. And if you work hard, you stay married, you take care of your family, you live below your means, you save and invest, you can build wealth in this country. America is still the place where you can start with nothing and build something. But it's hard to build wealth when the government is in your business. It's hard to build generational wealth. Now, that don't mean you not supposed to not do right and follow the laws, all right? Abide by the law. Do what you're supposed to do. File your taxes, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I mean by, okay, it's hard to build wealth when the government is your business, because if you're building generational wealth when you got 2, 3, 4 baby dads, or, child, you got 4 or 5, different fathers or mothers, it's hard to build generational wealth when you're chasing outrage instead of opportunity, right? And then also when you go through these programs, which is with the welfare program, I'm not against it. I'm for it. If you need help, everybody needs help at a certain point in time in their life. Life is ups and downs, you know. And the beauty is learning from that wisdom, and we be able to pick ourselves back up in the beauty of America. Well, what I'm saying is, you have to go through research and things like that. And some people accept that as a lifestyle, but then want to say that they cannot become a millionaire. But if you really put your mind to it, being in America, you can start with nothing and build with something, is my point. When I say, you want the government in your business, You don't want the government in your business if you're trying to build, because the reality is you've seen the example of them basically advocating for the mother to remove the father instead of advocating for a united family just to get more benefits and keeping them divided when two is greater than one, right? And that's what the race hustlers don't want you to understand. They need you to stay focused on what white people are doing. They need you to stay focused on the system. They need you to stay focused on everything outside of your control. Because as long as you're looking out there, you're not looking in the mirror and you're not asking yourself, what can I do? What can my family do? How can I improve my situation? Booker T. Washington talked about this over 100 years ago. He said that the race hustlers of his time were doing the same thing. They were keeping individuals focused on people, focus on what they couldn't do instead of what they could do, right? They were keeping people focused on fighting the system instead of building within. You have the ability. And Booker T. Washington was right. He built Tuskegee Institute. He built a whole generation of educators, entrepreneurs, farmers, and craftsmen. He didn't do it by marching and protesting. He did it by building, by teaching, by creating real value. And that's the lesson. That's always been the lesson. So here's what I want you to take away from this, family. Number one, be careful who you trust. Just because somebody has a big platform, just because they're on TV, just because they use the right language, doesn't mean they have your best interest at heart. Al Sharpton and Ben Crumb are not in the justice business. They're in the money business. And the product they sell is outrage. Number two, do your own research. Don't be a low information voter. Don't be a low information thinker. When you see a story that makes you angry, stop, take a breath, seek understanding in all that you do, and listen. Ask yourself, is this true? What's the other side? What do the facts actually say? Don't let somebody else tell you how to feel before you've done the work. Number three, look at the history, the real history. You want to have a productive conversation, you got to look at the truth in its entirety, not what sounds good to fit a narrative, picking and choosing selectively certain parts of the information, because then we can't really grow. Not the history that fits a political agenda, the real history, the complicated history, a history that shows human nature in all its ugliness, regardless of skin color, is my point. Because when you understand the real history, you understand that the problem is not race. The problem is the human heart. And the only solution for the human heart is not a government program. It's not a lawsuit. It's not a protest. It's a change of heart. Number four, focus on what you can control. You can't control what other people do, right? As I always like to say, grant me the serenity to know what I can control, what I can't, to know the difference. You can't control what the system does. You can't control what the government does, but you can control your own choices. You can control your own work ethic, right? You can control your own family. You can control your own money. You can control your own future. And number five, don't let the grifters keep you enslaved mentally for anybody, not physically, because that's not 1860. But mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they want you to stay in the mindset of victimhood, running into the victim Olympics. They want you to stay angry and scared, because an angry, scared person is easy to manipulate. When emotion is at its all-time high, logic leaves the room. A free person, a person who knows the truth, a person who is confident in their own abilities, that person is the dangerous one, is dangerous to the grift. And I'll leave you with this, family. The Bible says in John chapter 8, verse 32, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. The truth is not always comfortable. The truth is not always easy. The truth about Anthony Johnson, the truth about LBJ, the truth about the race hustlers, the truth about ourselves. It's hard to hear, but it's the truth that sets you free. The race industry is built on lies, on half-truths, on manipulation, on fear. But when you know the truth, when you can see the game for what it is, it can't control you anymore. You're free to think for yourself, free to make your own decisions, free to build your own life. And that's the whole point. That's the freedom that nobody can take from you. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with the pastors? Pastor Manning, the pastor in the very first clip when we first started the video. Do you think Al Sharpton and Ben Crumb are helping or hurting communities? Have you seen this Anthony Johnson story before? I want to hear from you. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications so you never miss an upload. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate, family. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.